What did somebody just say about Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Something Section 230? Somebody said he's doing this for Israel?
I didn't know him personally. I'd seen him on TV, in the movies. I knew that he was a filmmaker and entrepreneur. But I had breakfast with our next speaker and guest this morning. He talked about his interest in this issue from a personal point of view, being the father of 3 children.
It's because of that porn movie he made.
10, 8, and 3.
That's right.
So it's personal. So for parents and grandparents across America, this man is not acting, he's for real. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'm here to talk about the Section 230 sunset.
Wait. Somebody in chat said he did this for Israel. What was that? Is there anything to that? Or are you just saying that, like, using Israel as synonymous for the deep state? Like in the way that I say Israel when I stub my toe.
Sunset Act. If you don't know and you're watching, Section 230, what it does is basically says that a platform on the internet can't be held liable for the content that it hosts, which I realize sounds sort of technical and boring. So why did I come out here to Washington, D.C. to support this? Well, first and foremost, it's because I'm a dad, as the senator said.
This shit is really dangerous, man.
10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And a lot of people here today are parents whose kids, I just heard a couple stories that left me trying to keep myself together.
There's not really any monetary interest in abolishing Section 230. Masaigu, I think you might be thinking too small. Repealing Section 230 would basically enable the death of the internet and would give the government complete control over everything everywhere. It'd be the end of like what we considered the internet, and it would I feel like it in the short run it's less financially beneficial to repeal Section 230, but in the long run this is like the ultimate deep state Palantir Israel thing. You know what I mean? Like the death of free speech, literally the death of 30% of the current GDP. You could maintain a lot of that GDP in a way that is compliant with a non-Section 230 internet, but these pushes to restrict free, listen, the powers that be don't care about money. They care about you suffering. You know what else is going to cost a lot of money? Climate change. They don't give a okay? It's not about the raw money that they possess, all right? It's about the difference between them and you. And you, swarthy little peasant person running around in dirty clothing trying to evade surveillance drones that found out that 16 years ago you posted a Pepe the Frog joke or whatever on the internet, you know, them sipping champagne in their mansions, whether they're worth billions or trillions is immaterial. What they want is your suffering so they can masturbate to it. So the repeal of Section 230 is Israel coded 100%. They just like killing people.
These photos remind me of my kids. And the harm that was done to these kids online might have been prevented if certain big tech companies knew that they could be sued. But under Section 230, they cannot be. So these amoral companies...
You can sue tech companies even with Section 230. That's just a lie. You just can't sue them because someone on the platform broke the law or whatever. They might have to follow certain guidelines for the takedown of that content.
They just keep allowing these awful things to happen on their platform, and they don't do anything about it because they will always prioritize profits over the public good, even when it comes to kids. And beyond being a dad, you know, there's nothing in the world I love more than my family. But I do have a certain kind of love for the internet. I do. I co-founded an online community called Hit Record. It's still very dear to me. So I understand what Section 230 did to bring about the birth of the internet. That was 30 years ago. And I also understand how the internet has changed since then. Because back then, message boards and other websites with user-generated content, they really were more like telephone carriers. They were neutral platforms.
What?
That's not how things work anymore.
What?
Today, the internet is dominated by a small handful of these gigantic businesses that are not at all neutral, but instead
what?
algorithmically amplify
Yeah, Section 230 has nothing to do with neutrality at all. It's just about liability to stuff that you host on your platform. That's it.
Whatever gets the most attention and maximizes ad revenue. And we know what happens when we let these engagement optimization algorithms be the lens that we see the world through. We get a mental...
Section 230 has nothing to do with algorithms. You could pass a law banning algorithms. It's not Section 230.
Health crisis, especially amongst young people. We get a rise in extremism and a rise in conspiracy theories. And then, of course, we get these echo chambers. These algorithms, they amplify the demonization of the other side so badly that we can't even have a civil conversation. It seems like we can't agree on anything. And yet,
who's convincing these well-meaning people that the problem is Section 230, man? Like, if you have a problem with algorithms, I agree with you. This has nothing to do with Section 230. I thought you meant, like, recently.
I want to see this thing pass 100-0.
Ugh.
There should be nobody voting to give any more impunity to these tech companies. Nobody.
What a douche. I don't know. It seems like he's been misinformed.
A couple weeks ago, the actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt got up on stage in front of Congress and joined groups like the Heritage Foundation, Morality and Media, and other extreme far-right Christian fundamentalists to promote a law co-sponsored by Lindsey Graham that would dismantle the internet as we know it and eliminate free expression online. The law that he wants to eliminate is called Section 230, and if you're not familiar with it, Section 230 is a foundational internet law. That's why the core of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 tech policy agenda is about repealing it. It's known as the law that created the internet, and I did an entire video linked here on the law breaking down what it says, why it matters, and why the far right and billionaires in power across the political spectrum are so hell-bent on destroying it. Basically, Section 230 is what enables user-generated content on the internet. It's the reason you can leave a negative restaurant review without Yelp being sued out of existence. It's the reason fan communities can exist online. It's why any website can host a comment section. Section 230 is what allows blogs to exist and book reviews to be posted online.
Taylor is unfathomably based, even if wearing a mask everywhere in 2026 is goofy. Yeah, also her position that, like, every school child should have an iPad taped to the front of their face. A little bit concerning. But yeah, she does land in correct positions pretty often.
It's what allows for forums and chat systems to exist. Section 230 is the sole reason why Wikipedia can function as a volunteer edited.
I'd love to see you chat with Taylor. I'm pretty sure she's blocked me on both of my Twitter accounts. From when she started saying that the DSA was worse than Nazis because they wouldn't mask up for a DSA con or whatever.
Encyclopedia. It's why the Internet Archive can preserve snapshots of the web's history. I could go on, but I literally cannot explain how crucial and important this one small internet law is. And of course, it's no surprise that billionaires and powerful far-right extremists want...
She wears a mask because she has an autoimmune disease. You can't start talking about how the DSA is worse than Nazis because people aren't masking at the DSA event. You can't, you can't, it's a non-starter, you know?
To destroy it. And since destroying it would eliminate the ability to have free speech at all on the internet, I wanted to take today's episode of Free Speech Friday to talk about it. I didn't want to derail my Section 230 miniseries, which is currently running on Mondays, for a whole episode on Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but this stuff is really important. Also, I'm not a millionaire movie star. I do not have any long-term advertising partnerships, and my work is entirely 100% self-funded. And it's structured a little bit differently, but it's effectively known as the First Amendment for the internet. And for the first 20 amendments
since then, because back then
it's a long ass video, but I probably agree with what she's saying here.
And message boards and other...
Are you talking about? There's an entire multi-billion-dollar far-right Christian fundamentalist political movement that you've aligned yourself with, built on repealing Section 230. Again, the Heritage Foundation, Nicosi, aka Morality and Media, you know, the anti-extremist LGBT.
Apparently GJL posted a video on his site 2 days ago. Okay, I was looking for that. Breaking down his speech and stance. I was looking for that on YouTube. On his site? I didn't realize he had a site.
Support a
Joe's
bill called
Journal.
the Section 230 Sunset Act.
And I posted a video of my speech, got a lot of love and support from a lot of y'all out there. And so thank you for that. But also there was a fair amount of confusion and pushback and people raising some very good points that I want to discuss. One point that's not true is I did not get paid to support this bill. But I actually think a lot of the people that were raising a lot of these good points are people that we probably agree on like almost all of this. We want an internet that has vibrant, free, productive public discourse. I don't think we currently have that. And, the question is, of course, is this Section 230 Sunset Act a good way to get there? Well, let's talk about it because that's the whole point of this, right? Here's the first thing I'll say. I'm in favor of reforming Section 230. I'm not in favor of eliminating all of the protections that it affords. I'm going to repeat that because it's really the crux of this. I'm in favor of reforming, upgrading, modernizing Section 230 because it was passed 30 years ago. I am not in favor of eliminating all of the protections that it affords. Look, I co-founded an online community called Hit Record with a website with, a community of about like 1 million people when it was the biggest. And, but oftentimes it's been small. We were a small business.
That's a better take. I just want to know like what he wants changed about, because I'm not entirely sure if he knows what it does. I don't hate Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's like a cool guy. I don't know. I'm not anti-Joe. I just want to know, like, this is a very, very dangerous subject. I just want to know what he's on about.
Business. And I completely recognize that if a small business like Hit Record could be held liable for all of the things that anybody might post on a user-generated content platform, we wouldn't be able to afford the legal bills and it could put us out of business. So I really do understand the logic behind Section 230. That said, the internet has changed a lot, and a relatively simple platform like Hit Record is not how most people are using the internet nowadays. Most people are using a small handful of these gigantic businesses that are driven by engagement optimization algorithms and advertising revenue. And I would argue this is actually really bad for productive public discourse. So the question is, can't we have both? Can we protect free speech and the First Amendment while also holding these big tech companies accountable? Well, there have been lots of efforts to reform Section 230 in the past, and they keep getting killed by the big tech lobbyists. So this Section 230 Sunset Act is, as far as I understand it, a strategy towards reform. It'll force the tech companies to...
Reforming what? What do you want to reform, man? What do you want to reform?
To the negotiating table. That's why I supported it. So what would it look like if we were to reform Section 230? Well, that's a really good question. It's why I think it's actually really good that a lot of passionate people are raising their voices and saying, well, we have to make sure to protect this and we have to make sure to not lose that. But what if we could do this and what if we could do that? That's what democracy looks like, right? Is those discussions. I will tell you that for me, the most inspiring and intelligent proposal for Section 230 reform that I've seen comes from two of my favorite thinkers in this space, named Jaron Lanier and Audrey Tang. In fact, I'm going to pull up their article right now, which is called Sunset Section 230 and Unleash the First Amendment. Yeah, it's co-authored by Jaron Lanier, Audrey Tang, as well as Allison Stranger. I even was able to correspond with Audrey before going to DC. Audrey said, yes, we will have to subsequently make sure that we protect certain things that 230 protects. One example she gave was we didn't make sure that an app like Signal, which is an app I use, it's, for extreme privacy when you're sending text messages and stuff, that we make sure that any reform doesn't harm an operation like Signal. But yes, she said, I think sometimes in order to bring about the new, we need to sunset the old. If you haven't heard about Audrey Tang, I highly recommend you look her up, especially if you're interested in technology. She's the former Minister of Digital Affairs of Taiwan, and she as much as I think anybody in the world, has not only put forward great ideas to improve democracy and the intersection of democracy and technology, but she's actually put those ideas into practice in really successful, inspiring ways in Taiwan. And if you don't know Jaron Lanier, Jaron is a polymath extraordinaire, technologist, artist, musician, writer. He's the prime unifying scientist at
Maybe I'm not woke enough because I could never take somebody who looks like that seriously. But, you know.
Microsoft, but has also written, I think, some of the most incisive and compelling books over the last, 10, 20 years, holding up a mirror to Silicon Valley and saying, look at the problems that our technology is causing. And I really recommend reading any of his work.
Please tell me what specifically you would like changed about the internet.
As well. At the crux of their article is a really important distinction. And that distinction is between free speech and commercial amplification. Free speech meaning what a human being says. Commercial amplification meaning when a platform like Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or whatever uses an algorithm to maximize engagement and ad revenue to hook you, keep you, and serve you ads. And this is a really important difference that Section 230 does not appreciate.
Section 230 has nothing to do with that. You could pass regulations on commercial amplification without revoking Section 230 because they don't have anything to do with each other.
Section 230, as it's currently written, or as it was written 30 years ago, distinguishes between what it calls publishers and carriers. So a publisher would be a person saying something or a company saying something, like the New York Times say, or the Walt Disney Company, publishers. Then carriers would be somebody like AT&T or Verizon, the companies that make your phone. Or
you can already sue platform carriers for stuff they specifically publish. So, for example, you can't sue YouTube for slander because a random user uploads a slanderous video. But if YouTube put out a community update that was specifically slanderous towards a person, they could be sued for slander. This has nothing to do with Section 230. Section 230 does not prevent you from regulating or punishing the behavior of platforms.
Or your telephone service. So basically what Section 230 said is that these platforms for user-generated content are not publishers, they are carriers. They are as neutral as the telephone company. And if someone...
Sure, but the argument is that by amplifying the slander, they're essentially speaking/publishing it. That's a really nebulous claim, but I understand what you're on about, but you could still regulate that with Section 230. Section 230 on its own just means that the company is not liable for the behavior of the people who publish on their platform. But you could write laws that make illegal certain types of algorithmic amplification. Even with Section 230, like just like flatly, the removal of Section 230 has 0%. It's nothing to do with what he's talking about, it makes me feel like he's been pitched as like a corporate spokesperson for a deep state agenda. You know what I mean? Like he's been given these ideas by people who want to use him as a front man. I don't know if it's necessarily him. I don't know if he's just like got a poor conception of it.
One uses the telephone to commit a crime, the telephone company shouldn't be held liable. And that's true.
Absolutely, which is why amending 230 could fix it. Okay, but for one, he just spoke in favor of a bill repealing 230. And for two, you don't need to amend 230 to fix it. You can just add an additional law. You do not need to alter 230 at all.
A telephone company. But again, there's a third category that we need to add to really reflect how the internet works today. And that third category is amplification. There are publishers like the New York Times or Disney. There are carriers like AT&T and Verizon. But
CEO of the American Jewish Committee admits to working with social media companies to block anti-Semitic content. He's testified to Congress in favor of reforming Section 230. Yeah, that makes sense.
In the 20th century, the American zeitgeist was defined by TV and newspapers. Today, it's social media. Does the organized Jewish community need a social media?
Translating this, what it actually means is he would like it if social media platforms made it illegal to criticize Israel. Like actually illegal. Like these platforms would ban you for criticizing Israel because otherwise they would be open to lawsuits about promoting anti-Semitic content.
Strategy.
Hold on, do you think Section 230 is fine as it is? Yes. Yeah, all 230 does is distinguish between the publisher and the carrier. That's a distinction I recognize and I think is fine. Yeah. You can add additional laws, but I don't think 230 needs to be touched at all.
Look, we know from our State of Anti-Semitism in America report that the largest challenge for us when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism is online. And there are multiple ways to address it. Yes, we need a better strategy, but there are multiple ways to address it. There is the content piece, and I think we have to acknowledge that it's important to put out meaningful content. It is also important to realize that the content is driven by algorithms that determine what it is you're going to see. And the way to address those algorithms is to deal directly with the social media companies, which is what we do. And we can point to successes with Meta and with TikTok and with others in working to ensure that anti-Semitic material and anti-Semitic material that feeds into algorithms is taken down from their sites. This is an enormous...
What they mean is, by the way, Meta and TikTok have done this. What they mean is not producing anti-Israel content. And there have been multiple very, very prominent, well-recorded, documented instances of perfectly fair TOS non-violating content that is critical of Israel or that draws attention towards bad things that Israel has done that has been deleted with no explanation off of Meta platforms, off of TikTok, and so on. You know, that's what they're referring to. These are the people who want to get rid of 230.
Enormous challenge that the community will be well served to come together around. Every social media company has their private companies. They all have their own set of guidelines, but all of them are consistent in not permitting dangerous hate speech on their sites.
Aren't websites no longer acting as simply publishers via algorithms? I keep saying this over and over again. You can adjust the legality of different algorithms without adjusting anything about Section 230. There's no reason to change 230. The only reason you would want to change 230 is if you wanted to promote state censorship of social media platforms. Are you absolutely sure? Yes. There's nothing about 230 that prevents you from regulating algorithms. That you don't need to adjust 230. And if somebody does, it's probably because they want to control what you can see.
Then there are these amplifiers like Meta, TikTok, YouTube. They're not exactly editorial, right? They're not creating the content the way that the New York Times or the Disney company is, but they're not just neutrally transmitting someone else's content like a phone company. There's nothing neutral about these platforms. The whole thing runs through these algorithms that are designed to hook you and keep you and serve you ads. In fact, I recently heard a stat that when you use Instagram and you're scrolling the feed on Instagram, it's like...
How can you use Section 230 to f up free speech? Well, they were kind of just talking about it right here. A right-wing anti-free speech Zionist org that exists to push for like censorship and the destruction of the First Amendment in the United States is making the argument that Section 230 needs to be amended so that social media platforms will just automatically ban you or delete any content associated with criticism of Israel rather than having it rely on, as they describe it, inconsistent TOS guidelines. Like it's pretty straightforward, really. Or to put it more directly, if TikTok can be sued for anti-Semitism because a person posts a video criticizing Israel, they just won't let people post videos criticizing Israel. Without 230, would Vosh be liable for stuff we say here? Yes, that's what it exists to protect. That's how insane it is. That's the point of it. Yes. Without Section 230, legally, I would be, well, actually, white leaf, but whatever, would be would be on the hook for what you guys say, as though I was the one who said it. That's the whole point.
Like less than 10% of the content that you see is something that you asked to see. 90 some plus percent of the content that's coming your way was algorithmically curated by their, engagement optimization and ad revenue machine. So that's not exactly neutral and probably shouldn't enjoy the same protections as a human being talking or a phone carrier that's truly neutrally just transmitting what human beings say. It's the difference between free speech and commercial amplification.
Again, this stuff really does feel like he's being fed a script. This kind of like hasty clarification with like very ambiguous language, but also very like corporate, like, hey, here's my pointers, here's some buzzwords to latch onto.
And the article talks about how there's real legal precedent distinguishing between free speech, what someone says, and commercial speech. But under the current version of Section 230, that distinction can't be made.
Yes, it can.
And this algorithmic commercial amplification of speech leads to all kinds of harms to individuals and harms to exacerbating. And is not only doing nothing to protect free speech, rise in extremism. We see a rise in conspiracy theories. We see a rise in these echo chambers.
If you're concerned about a rise in conspiracy theories, I strongly suggest you do not hitch a wagon to the cart of a highly Israel far-right aligned effort to promote the censorship of content that is politically left-leaning online. Like that's not going to reduce the amount of conspiracism out there, I gotta say. Well, more to my point on conspiracism, right? Aren't they all? On Twitter? Yeah. My Jewish brothers and sisters have to stop feeding into the conspiracy themselves. Those getting a little cartoon. Listen, look, as I've said, the Zionists want people to be anti-Semitic because they benefit simultaneously both from people shifting to the far right and also from the vilification of Israel, which like further cements them as a global pariah, which the Zionists want, They do benefit from it. Which is why they're all so comfortable hosting fucking like every day there's a new conference where a bunch of like Zionists who work in some consultancy or media org you've never heard of sit together and discuss like, we're tired of people being able to criticize us, which is why we've used our extensive connections within the government to start pushing for the rescission of the First Amendment, And it's like the point of all this, they know what they're doing, Full of it on YouTube. 1 hour just of them talking? That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely correct. There's no single magic bullet in the fight against anti-Semitism. And I agree completely that we should be investing more in Jewish pride and Jewish education. At AJC, this is a fundamental part of what we do. All the work we do as proud American Jews. We are the American Jewish Committee. Also, this is the work we do, and there's
so insanely fucked up that you can't trust basically every single civil rights organization that defends the interests of Jewish people over the course of just a couple of years has openly shifted like far right with regards to pro-Israel advocacy. It's so fucked up. I'm sure that there are some that haven't, but like, oh my god, like what happened with the ADL is just fucking insane. Like you can see decades and decades of pretty principled like progressive advocacy civil rights work all being in an instant deleted as some like freak a Zionist hardline like Jewish supremacist it's like Greater Israel type or whatever, they go crazy with it and they just destroy the organization's credibility. Like look at this generational glow down. Besides working in favor of civil, by the way, the American Jewish community, over 100 years old. Besides working in favor of civil liberties for Jews, the org has a history of fighting against forms of discrimination in the U.S., working on behalf of social equality, such as filing an amicus brief in Brown versus Board of Education. Holy shit, you're like a pillar of American civil rights. It is also known for its pro-Israel lobbying. Great. Cool. Great. The fascist state like currently committing a genocide, openly militaristic violence, like, yeah, just naturally, you're the American Jewish Committee. Like you just, This guy, head of the American Jewish Committee, former congressman, by the way, Florida congressman.
And most that Israel itself, the Jewish state, the only Jewish state in the world, is a racist endeavor. The Zionism is Racism resolution passed in 1975 was a shameful moment for the United Nations that took more than 15 years to revoke. And so I would just suggest the importance of UN leaders publicly affirming these narratives about the establishment of Israel, the nature of Zionism, that they're false, that they're harmful, that they're dangerous, and yes, that they are helping to fuel the violence and hatred that endangers Jews around the world. It's related, and I think we have to acknowledge it, and there's no one who's in a better position to do that than...
Cool. It's like the story of regulatory capture, except in a different, like, initially, the American Jewish Committee was an American organization with American interests, American offices, and American members who worked for American civil rights. And then you skip ahead a bit. Before the Six-Day War, the AJC was officially non-Zionist. And then you skip ahead a little bit more. AJC became increasingly involved in the advocacy of energy independence for the U.S. on the grounds that it would reduce dependence on Arab oil, boost the American economy, and improve the environment. Like, it's like every time, and there's a bunch of orgs that are like this, man. It starts off with people who believe in something and they mean it, and then eventually it turns into the exact same, like, deep state corpo slop. Down the line, exact same fucking time, or exact same process all the time, all these different groups. Like, there are environmental groups and civil rights groups and legal groups and civil advocacy groups, conservative and liberal groups, but they all end up folding into the same line, which is eventually, it's like the private equity, financialization of fucking politics, man, where, like, over time, they all get bought up by the same fucking people, and they all end up sounding the same and talking the same, and they all have the exact same set of interests, you know? A lot of unions, too. Yeah. Yeah, the ADL has been shit for decades, but they've gotten a lot worse since Greenblatt took over.